Hey, welcome to another awkwardly awesome podcast, fan favorite. This one goes back 4 years ago, and I was just rewatching a little bit and remembering how much I loved interviewing this man, Tim Dumas. He talks all about helping each other to live our dreams, really encouraging each other to create what we want in this life. And he's so uplifting. He's talking about this in the context of a workplace, but I think we can apply these ideas to any time in our lives, in our families, in our friendship groups, in our workplaces. You're definitely going to want to catch this episode. I hope you enjoy it.
Today's guest, Tim Dumas.
Hey, thanks for being on Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Jason, it's such a pleasure to be with you, especially since that first time I met you, which was a year ago in San Diego at the Extreme Leadership Experience. Your inspiration and your story, I've told that story so many times. I've passed it on to so many people, and you are inspiring so many people with what you're doing as a speaker yourself. So thank you to you. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thanks, Tim, for that opening, and it just shows how you're constantly feeding other people's dreams. You're like way up in Canada, and I'm down here, but you're telling people about my dream, and that's what you do. You bring out the best in people by helping them.
Well,
really remember their dreams, right?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone listening has ever thought to themselves, what's the point of leadership, or even what's the point of myself in my organization? And I've thought about this a lot. And if you thought about this too, I took a long time to figure out, what is my purpose and what is my goal as I'm working in any organization for that matter, or even living with my family. And you and I have a great friend named Steve Farber who's written books on this topic. And he said it's about love, energy, audacity, and proof. Is to every day of your life, cultivate love and generate energy to inspire audacity and provide proof. That's about as good a definition as I've ever heard. But I've heard one that resonates just as well with that many people haven't heard. There's another friend I have. His name's Alex Havard. He wrote a book called Virtuous Leadership. And his definition of leadership is the word magnanimity. Yes, magnanimity. When I first heard it, Jason, I said the same as you. I was embarrassed. I'm like, am I the only one that doesn't know, number one, how to say it? But number two, what the definition is. And the definition is one of the most beautiful terms of leadership I've ever heard. And since that very day when I met him about a year, just over a year ago, I've tried to live by this mantra. Is the definition of magnanimity is the spirit of striving for greatness by bringing out the greatness in others. So if it's my goal to live a truly great life, the way I can do that is bring out the greatness in others. And by doing that, and to do that, I'll support people's dreams, both personally and professionally, which is somewhat taboo in the workplace. Often people in the workplace won't say, hey, what's your personal dream? People might say, whoa, I don't want to talk about personal dreams at work or even my personal life at work. And you know what? And that's okay if that's our perspective. However, if you and I work beside each other every day, and if I know it's your goal to buy a new car, you know it's my goal to buy a new house, and we ask each other each day, how's it going, Jason? How's it going, Tim? How can I support you on that? Can I help you find a mortgage broker? Can I help you find a car dealer? Can I help you with this? Now we're working together, not only in our professional life, but in our personal life. I don't know many people that go to work every day and say, hey, let's make the most profit for this company that we possibly can, right? That's generally not, but people will say, well, you know what? If I continue to grow this business, I can support other people. I can best support my family, and I can influence others. And that's my definition of a great life.
This is so important because so often in work situations, at least I've experienced that everyone kind of gets caught up in the daily grind and just doing it a little better and a little better. Why is it important to dream big and even share personal dreams when the work isn't about personal dreams specifically? I guess what I'm asking is personal dreams don't directly, or someone might think personal dreams don't directly affect the bottom line. So why care about it?
It all comes down, Jason, to one's purpose, right? When we clearly understand our purpose and our why of why we're coming to work, which, as we said, generally isn't people coming to work just for the betterment of the company, whatever the company is, right? It's for the betterment of themselves. So when we can link the betterment of themselves personally with the betterment of the company, we are all going to win, right? It's not just when people say, well, that really doesn't have a place in the workplace. I would say, well, really, do you have people in your workplace that just come to work for the sole purpose of loving to see the company succeed? And you know what? I love to see my company succeed almost, just as much as anything. But I have that pulled into the fact that, some of my dreams involve, helping my kids become the best versions of themselves, helping the people around me to support them in the best way, to support others. And when I put that together, think about the not just motivation, the inspiration that I have. And my question to you or anyone listening would be, do inspired workers, do inspired colleagues do better work? Almost everybody would say yes. And dreams inspire us. They connect us and bring us together. So we know that by doing inspiring work, we'll do better work. If we're better connected as a team with the people around us, and dreams, if I understand yours intimately and you understand mine, then we'll work together to get that. Teams that have great connection become better. There was the Edmonton Oilers, one of the best hockey teams in the 1980s. Even those in the U.S. will remember Wayne Gretzky, right?
Oh,
They won multiple championships in the 80s, and they said to them, they said, why are you so good? Is it the talent? And they said, no, a lot of teams have talent. We're lucky we do have great talent, but we are as much of a team as anyone. We hang out together and we support each other through thick and thin, personally and on the hockey ice. And that's what made them a great team, as much, if not more, than their skill.
So let's talk a practical, for an example of this. So going into a new job, you had this dream of taking your family of eight, right?
8, yeah, 6 kids.
Yeah, I'm an only child, so that's a great family. Going into a new job, you had this dream of taking your 8 people to Disneyland. How did this come to connect with, or how did your new position encourage you to realize this dream?
Well, I had thought about dreams a lot in previous careers, but it wasn't until about 5.5 years ago now that I joined Jack's Beer, Wine, and Spirits. And my first meeting, I'll never forget that meeting. And at that time, they really didn't talk about his dreams. But Matt, one of my business partners in Jax, he sat down, we had a coffee, I'll never forget. And he said, Tim, tell me about your goals. And so I told him, business. And he said, no, tell me all of your goals. And so he said, for your family, what are your goals for your family? What really makes you tick? What are your goals in your relationship with your wife, in your friends? And it wasn't honed in at that time, and he might not have even known what he was doing, but that was the first semblance of bringing dream leadership into our company. And when I thought about that, it fired me up. I went to meetings and I said, you know what? One of the things is I wanted to take my family to Disneyland. So everyone in that partnership group, all the other 5 people, they knew intimately what one of my big dreams was in the next few years. And so not only were they supporting me on that, to get into a, save and get into a financial position to go, but they were there to support me in the workplace, saying, look, when you need to get those 2 weeks off, I got your back. And what an amazing place where when people say to you, hey, Tim, I got your back. Because just like any organization, in our organization at Jax, there's lots of hard times, right? There's good times and there's bad times. But you know what? When there's bad times, and I know that Matt's got my back, even if we have maybe a little disagreement, I know deep down he's got my back, and he knows deep down that I've got his. And tell me this, does that help people to do their best work? So when people say, you know what, this dream, mumbo jumbo, that's not going to help us. Let's just focus on the bottom line. And you'll never, I completely agree. We need to focus on the bottom line to become better. However, one of the ways that we can impact the bottom line is having greater connection, having greater inspiration, and those people do better work and succeed together.
So that's such a direct link. And as you say this, it occurs to me as if you had never talked about Disneyland to your coworkers and suddenly went in one day and said, hey guys, I want 2 weeks off. And they had no idea what that was about. They would be like, they might be like, no. But since they know it's your dream, they're like excited to support you.
Right, because I'll support them just as they support me, right? Some of our colleagues that have families overseas, right? They might need to take a little bit more time off, but I know how important that is to them, number one, and how big of a dream that is. And I think of that myself, and I think, oh my goodness, if my family was, an 8 or 10 hour plane ride away, I would love to be able to see them on at least a semi-regular basis. So what will I do when I see the joy in that person's eyes when they come back and they tell me about seeing their mother again after a few years, or seeing their brother or sister? That's amazing. Just like when I came back from Disneyland and I showed them the picture of my son on Splash Mountain, my 3-year-old son, and I can't do the picture justice, but it was something like terror and excitement all into one. And that just puts it all together, because we were able to celebrate each other's dreams. And even if those people the people I work with, they might have no interest in going to Disneyland themselves. But because we know and we support and respect each other so much, and I respect their uniqueness as a person, and they do mine, whatever their dream is, I'm going to be there for them as well. And that's a wonderful place to be, as I said, because there's so many times in the workplace and in any relationship that there's difficulties. And when we have connection, that connection we have through our dreams, we can get through any difficulty.
So are you saying like having that connection almost gives you something else to focus on in addition to the difficulties? Like now you have something bigger than just the difficulties to focus on.
Yeah, if you and I are in a working a relationship, or any relationship for that matter, and we don't have those roots in the ground, if you will, right? When we have the dreams are the roots in the ground of any relationship. If when if anyone thinks about when they got into a romantic relationship with their spouse, right? Generally you talk about your dreams, right? And those are the roots in the ground to move forward. And when we have difficulties as we go through life, those dreams are still the roots in the ground that keep us grounded. There might be a little branch that breaks off, right? But we still have those roots, and that branch is just pruning us to get to a better place in our relationship overall, right? And that's the same thing in the workplace. When we have those roots, and I know exactly who you are and exactly what your goals are as a human being, we're going to work together to achieve those.
I have to put your words up because, oh my gosh, so nice. So like at this point in the conversation, it would be easy for our viewers and even me to start thinking, well, Tim was just born with the dream big gene, and he's always been a big dreamer, and he's never forgotten about his dreams. And that's just the way he is. I don't have his dream talent, so.
Jason, just like anybody, and I'm sure many people struggle with that daily, right? There was times yesterday.
Daily?
There were times yesterday that I struggled with my dreams, right? One goal that we have now is my wife and I have a goal of buying a new house for our family that's a little bit bigger for our family of 6 kids to fit into, right? And
so you need a few bedrooms.
Just a few bedrooms, yeah. But we were talking about this yesterday, and for a moment, a split second, I was like, man, maybe this just won't work out. We should give up on this, right? Like it's just not going to work. But do you know what? We sat together and we said, you know what? Let's leave any stone unturned until we find a way to do it, right? Find a way to do, whatever it is, the financing, find the right place, et cetera, et cetera. But when we have that mindset of just continuing to truck on, and any failure we have is just a step closer to our success, right? When we think about Edison creating the light bulb, right? He failed thousands of times. And he said, each time I never got discouraged, because each time I was one step closer to actually creating the light bulb, right? And it's the same thing in that situation. So I struggle with that positivity on a daily basis. But the great thing about our dreams is when we have people around us that pull us out of that. And I have, I'm lucky to have many business partners with Jax, and many great people in my life, such as yourself, Jason. But one of our business partners in Jax, his name's Mike, and I was talking to him yesterday. He said, Tim, you're never going to give up on this dream, because I'm not going to let you. So, I said to him something like, I don't know, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I shouldn't think about this now. He said, Tim, I won't let you do that. This is one of your dreams, and we're going to work together until we find a way to get it done. And there's been so many times in my life where I've been, life has kicked me on my butt, right? I think of in business, right? I've been involved in many businesses that are extremely successful, and I've been involved in some that aren't as successful. They kick me on my butt, right? But the learnings that I have from that to grow out of that have been amazing. But there have been days where I've laid in my bed at the end of the day and I said, is this really, like, maybe I can't do it, right? But that's why the dreams are so important, those connections we made with so many other people. Because, Jason, if I came to you next week and said, I don't know, Jason, maybe I can't, achieve my goal of being an international speaker like our friend Steve Farber. And you'd say to me, Tim, I'm not going to let you do that.
Yeah, definitely I would. Yeah, and just that encouragement helps another person keep going. So this raises an important point. I'll get back to. But by the way, on the international speaking front, you're a great speaker, and I was going to queue up the link of your talk because people should see it, but then I forgot to do that.
That's okay. If you look it up on Get Inspired Talks on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. If you just put Get Inspired Talks, then you can Google my name in there. You get it. If you like it, please leave a comment. Also, as far as connecting with me, Jason, please pass along my phone number, my email to anyone that contacts you. People can find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. I would love to connect with people, have a quick conversation with you if anyone's looking for further information or if they'd like coaching. One thing you mentioned, Jason, is about, having people around you. And I never realized this until 2 years ago, as far as how important it is to have people around you that are going to support you to get to the next level or to get to your version of success. And in Vancouver, I met a woman named Nancy MacKay that's founded a company called MacKay CEO Forums, and it's peer groups for business people. In the US, you have an organization called Vistage or Tech. There's different types of organizations such as this. But what I realized is in the first 15 years of my leadership career, I was missing this. I had my nose to the grindstone and I was going to work hard and nobody was going to work harder than me. However, I didn't have my mind opened to the people around me. And when I found MacKay CEO Forums 2 years ago, and I got into a peer group of 10 other people whose sole purpose is to support each other, to grow, really to support each other in their dreams, I realized how amazing this was. And that one day every month or second month that I take out of my business life to put into that pays more dividends than any amount of hours I could put in my business, because I'm working on my business. I'm working on myself, not just necessarily in my business. And so that's not only going to help me, but it's going to help all the people around us. So the people around us and the people we surround ourselves with are so very important to share that connection, because they're going to help us grow.
Oh, you bring up such a crucial question. And you talk about this in your Get Inspired talk too, through your son asked you to buy him a Lamborghini at one point. So what's the difference between supporting someone's dream and then figuring between supporting someone's dream and figuring out how they should get that dream and doing the work for them?
So it all really comes down to the three types of leadership, and they can be described as coaching, mentoring, and training, right? Training is when you tell someone what to do. Mentoring is drawing upon one's experience so that they know what to do. And then coaching is asking questions to help them draw that out of themselves. If you think about it, when we ask each other questions and really help each other dig that out of ourselves, that's the best way to learn, when you actually do it yourself. If my son had asked me, Dad, can you buy me a Lamborghini? And I just said, yeah, I'll buy you one. Well, number one, we'd be in trouble financially. But number two, he wouldn't really understand what it takes to get there. So in the talk, what I said was, absolutely, son, I'll help you build that dream plan to get there. So then, because when we're supporting each other's dreams, we're not doing it for them. My business partner, Matt, didn't fly the plane for me to Disneyland. He didn't buy the ticket for me. He didn't hold my hand and take me on each ride.
The tickets.
Yeah, the tickets.
More than one tickets.
So, but he helped me create an action plan, right? So when I go to my son, so great, son, let's create an action plan. Number one, how much does it cost? I don't even know how much a Lamborghini costs. Let's say $100,000. Okay, what do you need to do to get there? Okay, I need to get a job, right? Okay, I'll support you on that. I'll help you make some connections to get a job. What do you need to do next? I need to save. I'll help you find a financial planner, right? Mm-hmm. Then you're going to work with him to save. So I'm helping you with the connections. I'm supporting you on that. But when we support each other's dreams, it's not doing it for them. It's supporting them on doing that for themselves, because that's when they really learn. There's a great author. Her name's Liz Wiseman. She wrote the book, The Multipliers. And it was a book that, there's a few books that have changed, really profoundly changed how I led. And this is one of them, because she stated that leaders are either multipliers or diminishers. And I always thought, I'm a multiplier. I empower other people around me. I want people to become better. I'm certainly a multiplier. Well, I read the book and I realized I was an accidental diminisher. Yeah. So it's funny when you think accidental. I didn't think I was a diminisher. I wasn't trying to be a diminisher, but sometimes my actions were. And my action was this. She calls this the rescuer. And this was my technique. I would empower people around me. And then when they started to fail, I would swoop in like Superman and save the day. Tim, the superhero, saving the day. Well, guess what happens when I swoop in? All the learning stops. So they get to a certain point, boom, learning stops. If I let people fall just a little bit, not completely fail, but fall, just like when you're teaching a child to ride a bike, right? When we're teaching a child to ride a bike, if I just kept holding on all the time and never let my kids fall, they would never learn to ride a bike. They'd be 20 years old, still not knowing how to ride a bike. But if I let them fall just a little bit, just a few times, and not swoop in to save them, that's when they learn. Just like when they're learning to walk, right? When kids are learning to walk, we don't tell them how to walk because they don't know the language yet. They usually can't speak. So when they're learning to walk, they just practice and we coach them, right? We cheer for them when they take their first step. And then they try to figure it out on themselves, by themselves, right? And this is what a true multiplier is, helping each other just figure it out as I take the next step, as I take the next step, as I take the next step. And before you know it, you're walking. And we didn't train our children in the littlest bit to learn how to walk other than celebrate their success.
Yeah, like you sat a few feet away from them and said, "Hey, come on, walk to me." Yeah.
And it's no different in the business world now. When there's people around me or my colleagues say, "Hey, I'm struggling with my dream. I'm failing at it." I'm not going to swoop in and fix it for them, but I'm going to help them create that action plan to ask them the questions to get out of it. So asking questions such as, well, what is it that hasn't been working? How can you change that? Can you change that, right? Sometimes we're just in a mindset that we're struggling with that. And when we're in that mindset, we need sometimes support to get out of it. So just saying, no, that's not true. You can get out of this. How can you do it? And then supporting them on that and reading to create the action plan, and then holding them accountable, checking in. How many friends do we have that we check in with on a weekly, monthly basis? That's really what it is, checking in. Hey, Jason, how are you doing with that dream? Did you buy that car yet? Tim, have you bought that house yet? No, I haven't. Have you called the mortgage broker? Yeah, I called the mortgage broker. Great. Okay, we got that going. Have you called the realtor? Yeah. Have you looked at one? No. Okay, what do you have to do now, right? Just creating an action plan. When we create these big rocks, sometimes they seem insurmountable. To become an international speaker, how could I possibly do that? But if I speak if I speak here, I speak at a smaller audience, all of a sudden the ball starts rolling, the flywheel starts going. Before you know it, you've achieved your dream.
Just a small point on the international speaker thing. You might want to define it a touch more, because right now you're technically standing up and speaking, and some people in the United States are hearing this. So I would say you need a more defined dream in that realm, because you're an international speaker right now. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so now I need this has been great for me, because now I need to define a new dream.
Yeah. Just flesh it out a little more. Like, I want to speak in Europe X number of times, or whatever.
Yeah, one of my next streams is going to be the number of people that I can influence by speaking and coaching. So, keeping track of how many people I speak to each time I speak, and how many people I coach, and continuing to grow that number each year.
That's wonderful. What would you say to someone listening to this and starting to remember the dreams they have, maybe in their teen years, or a kid in their 20s, but then they go, Tim, I tried those dreams and they just didn't work out. I liked them, but then it ended up I failed at them, and now I'm doing life. I'm being an adult. I'm making ends meet.
Sure, and there's number one. There's times that we got to do some of those things, right? Do what we got to do to make ends meet, but that doesn't mean we need to stop dreaming, right? One of the fallacies of life is that when we get to a certain age, we stop dreaming. As a kid, we ask our kids, what would you like to be when you grow up? They say, I want to play for the Chicago Bulls. I want to play for the Seattle Seahawks, right? They say all these dreams, and there's a certain point, probably around when they, the end of high school or early when they go to college, they stop dreaming and they say, you know what, I got to get realistic. I just got to get a job. And in some way, you need to do many of those things, but that doesn't mean you need to or you stop dreaming. There's never a time in your life that you stop dreaming. So that's such a fallacy, because people tell us to get realistic, to do these things, but that's not at the detriment of putting aside our dreams. And to those people that said, Tim, I've done that, I've dreamed, and I got let down because I didn't achieve them, I'd ask them, how close were you to that dream? You might have been a lot closer than you thought. There's a great little meme, a picture where it's a guy who's like digging for gold, and he's got a pickaxe and he's digging for gold. You might have seen it. And there's two of them. One of them gives up and says, I'm never going to get the gold. I've been pickaxing for days and days. And the other one says, I'm just going to do it till I get it. And they're both this far away from striking the gold. Thomas Edison never knew how far he was away from reaching that light bulb. You and I don't know how far we are away from speaking at that audience of, 50,000 people, right? You never know how far you are away. And there's, we only get the chance at this life thing once, right? So what I always ask people is there's a couple questions. When I coach people, I was first asked this question by one of my mentors who I mentioned earlier, named Nancy MacKay. She said, Tim, if I told you couldn't fail, what would you achieve today? If I told you couldn't fail, what would you achieve? And I thought about that. And I've asked that question of people in coaching, and their mind is just opened, because normally they say, well, I came from this family background, or this happened to me. I couldn't possibly do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this enough, right? But when we say you couldn't fail, do you know what happens? We put into place an action plan to get to that dream, because we know we can't fail. And so we shoot for the stars. We might hit the moon, but we're going to get pretty darn close to those stars, number one. And number two, the other question I ask people is, what's the worst case scenario, right? When we look at what the worst case scenario is, often we don't achieve our dreams because of fear. And we're afraid of failure. And I was in a meeting this morning, and there was a great example of this. The person who was conducting the meeting said, "Could I have a volunteer? I want to for a little. I want to show something." Nobody volunteered, and so finally, one person volunteered. And after the silence, this person came up, and they were asked to solve a riddle of sorts, and it was difficult. But at the end, this person said, "Wow, my mind was really opened by solving this riddle." And then and then we asked the person, well, why didn't you do it why didn't you volunteer in the first place? And everybody said, I didn't volunteer because of fear. And when we asked them, what was the worst thing that could have happened? It would have been 30 seconds of embarrassment. But their mind could have been open to great things. And there's so many times in our lives that we, because of a short time of embarrassment, or because we just don't want to be seen as a failure, that we won't go for the great things. And if we go for the great things, and when we change the word failure to a step towards success, that's when we start to further achieve our dreams. When we start to understand and change that mindset, the failure is temporary. Failure is temporary. And it's only one step closer to reaching your success. I don't know any successful person that has achieved that without blood, sweat, tears, and failure.
Blood, sweat, tears, and failure. I fail at saying the word failure. This is a good time to ask you. I have this concept of doing an imperfect best, and what I mean by that is we go for what we want in life, and when imperfections come, we use those as jet fuel to keep going instead of excuses to stop. But what does imperfect best mean to you? Doing your imperfect best.
Well, first of all, I loved your book. And if anyone watching or listening hasn't read the book, it's outstanding. Your story, Jason, of becoming a public speaker, an international public speaker, from somebody who was born with that speech impediment is absolutely amazing. Is absolutely inspiring, right? So as far as becoming our imperfect best, I think it's to embrace that failure, right? And embrace that as a step towards future success. I know in reading your book that any little stumbling blocks that you had along the way and difficulties that you went through, you wouldn't become the person you were today if you weren't molded like clay with those little imperfections, and it's starting to mold into that perfect best of you, right? So by the time that your days on earth are done, you're going to be the most perfect clay model of yourself and the most perfect version of yourself because of all those imperfections that you've gone through and that you've molded out over that time. And that's what's so exciting. And that's what being your imperfect best to me is about not getting too down about those little failures, because we know that those are a step towards future success and becoming the best version of ourselves.
I love your notion that all the imperfections along the way lead us to grow towards the perfection that we are capable of becoming.
Yeah. I mean, would you ever have thought that you'd be a speaker at events with thousands of people when you were 12 years old?
No.
Yours is one of the more amazing stories, right? Absolutely inspirational.
Thank you. I like to at least I plumbed my story for inspiration. I like to think that we all have an inspiration in our story, but it's how we're using the limitations and the stuff life gives us. Are we using them to beat ourselves down, or are we using them, as you say, as stepping stones?
Yeah, there's only one difference between your limitation and mine. One can hear your limitation when you can speak. Sometimes my limitations are hidden, and because they're hidden, that probably makes it more difficult for me to overcome because I can hide those, right? You know, and Brene Brown talks about is the power of vulnerability. Others talk about as humility. You know, the best definition I've heard of humility is understanding your strengths, but also understanding your challenges and being vulnerable about those, right? And when we really come forth with being so self-aware that we can be vulnerable and understand those challenges and put those on the table, well, number one, we're going to surround ourselves with people that are good at those traits that we're not good at. And number two, we're going to hone out those traits while we're building up the traits that we're really good at. And I think that's really where one starts to become that best version of themselves, or the best leader they can be.
So impactful, Tim. Thank you so much for doing this work and reminding us not to give up on what we want to do in life, but to keep going for us step by step. You're doing very noble work. So last question. It's been a tough year, last 12 months, and for people in general. What last words of encouragement will you give people watching this?
Well, during these 12 months or in any time, we can always find an excuse for why we didn't achieve what we can achieve. And those excuses are very valid, right? But they're just that. They're excuses. And if there's people who have used this time to hone themselves, to become better, and to use this time to become great. For example, many of us have better relationships just with our families, you know, with my kids. I'm working from home more than I did before. And so at the end of the workday, I'm home. I can be with my kids. I can develop those relationships. So I've been able to use this time to develop greater relationships with them. Some days I've succeeded and some days I've failed, but I've succeeded more than I've failed. And so I've been able to develop that. I've been able to develop things like speaking to you on this Zoom line, right? I might not have done that over a year ago because most of the speaking engagements were in person, right? So in the coaching world, I'm now coaching people in the southern United States, in the northern United States, in Europe. I'm coaching people all over the world, where a year ago I was only coaching people in Vancouver because we did so in person. So
you're an international coach.
Yes, yeah. So when we just think of different ways to live our purpose, given the cards that we're dealt, that's when we continue to become great, because obstacles that are thrown at us are opportunities for us to grow into even better versions of ourselves. So if somebody's feeling a little bit down, number one, think about what are some of the things and how can I even become better during this time, because there's always opportunities. There's no doubt though that this time's been hard on many people, and that's difficult. So hopefully they have the people around them, and I would love to talk to anyone on these topics. So please reach out to me if you can. But when we have those roots of our dreams with the people around us, we'll come together as a community to do great things.
And the last thing, what's the easiest way for people to connect with you? You mentioned LinkedIn, but
yeah, LinkedIn, number one. They can just phone me. I'm in Vancouver, BC. You can phone or text me. My number is 778-998-5817. I'd be happy to receive a text or call from anyone. 778-998-5817. You could also email me. A good email for me on the coaching side is tim.dumas, D-U-M-A-S, at MacKayCEOforums.com. So that's MACKAY CEOforums.com. But also you can find me on LinkedIn, send me a text. I'm more than happy to give that out to anyone. And I'm more than happy to be connected to anyone, because I know the more people I connect with, the better we become together. So feel free to share that, Jason, and I'd love to hear from any of you.
And if any of you need that contact information, please rewind a little bit and copy it down. My hands weren't working quite fast enough to get it in the banner, so just rewind. Thank you so much for your time, Tim, and for your wisdom and for your heart.
Jason, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for your inspiration. I am so blessed to call you a friend and to have met you on that day, exactly 1 year ago. So keep inspiring people, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, and you too, my friend. Thanks so much. Okay, wasn't that amazing? Gosh, could just talk to Tim for hours. So much wisdom. But for now, it's time to go. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week at this time. Oh, if you love this, tell your friends and family and pets too, maybe, but maybe not your pets, because they probably it won't matter to them either way. But tell your friends and family. Thank you.